Recording. Amazing. And let's start. Yep. Let me try to see. All right. I cannot see chat, but I can see the participants, which is good. All right. Welcome everyone on the Nowhere demo 25th. Today we're going to cover amazing feature, which is governance, and which is the final deliverable of our current Kusama Treasury proposal. So let's start. While waiting for the others, feel free to scan the QR code or go using this link to join our social media like a Twitter, Telegram, Medium, YouTube channel, where you can find the recordings of such demos and the slides for them. And let's start. The first topic would be to review the version 4.0 release of NOAA, which includes the governance release. So you can see all the features which would be available as soon as it will hit the markets. So it's already available on the Google Play, so Android users can cheer up and download it even today. And for the App Store, we are aiming to release it next week, probably the early next week. So here's the list of the features. We will go into the details during the walkthrough, like one by one, for each of them. So we're going to cover all the features for governance 1.0 and governance 2.0. So that would be a little bit later. And let's talk about governance in general, like what governance is, what are our goals, and what is the difference between governance version 1 and governance version 2. So first of all, our goal for the governance. We would like to provide to the ecosystem clean and simple and also complete user interface for the governance so that more people can participate in the governance. It's a crucial activity on the network. We also aiming to support both generations of the governance, existing one or current one, and also upcoming one, which is like a next generation governance. And finally, we would like to iterate as we go to provide a more involved experience to the network's governance. And we call it gamified governance, and we will show the details in the next proposals. So we were mentioning for quite a while the governance 1.0 and 2.0, but what's the difference? And to really understand the difference, I would really recommend you to refer to the article by Gavin Wood about the governance 2.0 or next generation governance. However, just for now, I would like to highlight, let's say, the main differences that affects you as a user in the network. So in governance 1.0, it was usually also referred as a free chamber governance. And the reason for it is that the structure. So the structure of the governance was including technical committee, console, and the general voters. So technical committee is basically the set of accounts which can apply the hot fixes or any changes in a really fast way. So they really, the group of the accounts which are aiming to solve something urgent fast for the sake of the network. So the counselors are the ones who are making decisions for more general things in the network, such as approving the treasury proposals. So counselors were elected by the community, right? They were also re-elected within a time, but still providing some centralization, let's say. And the general voters. So you would be able to vote for certain things in the governance 1.0 as a user. So being not a technical committee or the counselor, you were still able to vote for the certain things. Another key thing about governance 1.0 is that those referendums which are available for everyone, those were just like one referendum at a time usually, or like a couple of them. But the main thing is that it was usually a focus for one main topic at a time, which resulted in sort of decentralized governance, having centralized authorities like a technical committee, counselors, but also slow referendum life cycle. So it was taking some time for certain referendum to be approved or rejected. And then other referendums were waiting in the queue. So that was the governance 1.0. The governance 2.0, however, refers to be the next generation of decentralized governance. And in the governance 2.0, we are dissolving technical committee. Well, not we, but the network is dissolving technical committee and the counselors. And now everyone can vote for everything, right? So it gives you as a user more, let's say, power and more voice to your actions. The second major improvement or change is that now we have multiple tracks with configurable parameters for referendums. So instead of having just one referendum, like a main one available to be voted, now we have all these different categories, I would say, for referendums to be voted. And now everyone can vote for such things like a treasury proposals or tips or any network configuration. So those would be now decomposed in different categories and available for everyone for the voting. So now governance 2.0 results in basically dissolved decentralized authorities. We no longer have technical committee or the counselors. We have only, like, let's say, regular accounts. And also it allows us to vote in parallel on multiple things, right? So treasury proposal, runtime upgrades, tipping, network changing, everything happening at the same time, basically. And every this track has its own parameters. So something like sending like one Kusama token as a tip to one of the accounts for their, let's say, contribution to the ecosystem would be approved relatively fast, like within, let's say, 3 hours or like a days, right? But something more crucial for the network or more crucial for the network's treasury or the community, let's say the big treasury proposal, right? So spending a large amount of funds would require more time. So that allows us to distinguish between different actions in the ecosystem and solve them in a different way in the governance. So once again, if you would like to learn more about governance, I highly recommend you to visit this article. Slides will be available in our YouTube, so feel free to go there and click the link for the governance version 2 article by Glenwood. Now, why would we support both if basically we can see the difference? And yeah, governance version 2 is more, let's say, tempting for us as a user because we can vote for multiple things. And the reasoning is that the governance version 2 is not yet available on the networks, right? So you can see that currently on the landscape of the governance, the version 1 is onboarded on all the networks, and you can see the examples of them like Polkadot, Kusama, Moonbeam, Robonomics, and all the other networks, right? Those networks has right now version 1.0 governance. However, several parachains and of course Kusama and Polkadot already stated their motivation to upgrade to the version 2.0 governance relatively soon. So on Kusama, we can expect it to be available in November, December. It's supposed to be in the next runtime update. So that usually happening monthly, right? So we can expect it by the end of November, maybe, or in December. Now, the Moonbeam and Moonriver already stated that it is a planned integration for them. So they will switch to version 2.0 governance, or they're at least testing it right now on their testnet, right? And for the Polkadot, Polkadot has plans to switch to the version 2.0 governance after observation on Kusama. Once again, this is not a final list of all networks which will adopt the version 2.0 governance, but this is at least the confirmed information for today. All right, so let's check the chat if we have any questions, and we will proceed with the demo of the governance itself. Robonomics will move to governance 2 after observing how it plays out on Kusama for some weeks. Amazing. So we have a message in the chat that Robonomics will switch to governance 2.0 as well. Yeah, that's pretty much reasonable. All right. So we have a set of features, and I invite you to see the demo of them. Let me find the emulator. Can you guys confirm me that you can see my Android emulator screen? Amazing. All right. So the first one is that now we have a new tab, vote, which allows you to participate in the governance and crowd loans. So instead of crowd loans on the bottom, we have the vote, and inside of the vote tab, you can switch between the governance and the crowd loans seamlessly, right? We have support for both governance 1.0 and 2.0. That's why once we would like to switch the network for the governance, you can see lots of the networks available. Those are all networks which have the governance features built in their runtime. Therefore, Nova can support the governance on them. So for the version 2.0 governance, we have deployed the testnet. So we will refer to this one to test and demo the features of governance 2.0 today. But let's go back to the Polkadot for a moment. View available and completed referendums. So now you can see it as a list of the referendums. First, we have a section with available referendums or ongoing referendums, and we can see their statuses and the progress. And after that, we can see the completed referendums. So all referendums which were completed in the past, either approved or executed or rejected, those would be allocated here, and you can refer to them at any moment of time to see the details and all the information. View the details of each referendum. So let's go to the one of available for the voting. For example, this one, to vote for runtime upgrade on the Polkadot. Now, what we can see here, we can see the title and the description, and worth mentioning that in order to provide the great UX, we not only show the on-chain data, which would be just referendum number without any explanation, right? So you would need to figure it out by yourself, what's going on here. But we have integrated the Polkassembly API, and the Polkassembly as a platform to discuss all governance-related topics. So all the referendums which are available for the voting, and all of them, you can go here and see the description, you can see the comments, the reactions, all of this. So this is basically a governance discussion platform, right? So we are fetching this information and mapping to the on-chain data so that users can see everything and understand what's going on in this referendum in particular. So if I go here and tap the read more, I will see the full description of this referendum, right? So I can see the text, I can see the links, if there will be any images or tables or basically any formatting which something called Markdown supports, that would be visible in Nova. So if you would like to, let's say, go and visit this link, you can just tap here and that will be opened in your browser. So you can have the seamless experience for the governance now on your mobile device. All right. What else we have? We have the voting or your vote, right? You can see your resulted vote. So I have already voted to this referendum with 10 dots with 1 conviction, which resulted in 10 votes, and my vote was I, right? But we also have the voting widget. So we have the more information about voting, what is the status. So currently the referendum is passing. So it will be approved if the passing threshold will remain the same. It will be approved in the 6 days and 70 hours. And we can see the details of the votes. So who votes as I, right? So amount of the accounts and their tokens, their conviction, their addresses. So everything is available here in the convenient list. If you'd like to check the details of this account, you can just tap on it and either copy address or see in Explorer, but that's available for you. They're also sorted for the convenience in in descending order. So you can see the largest and to the smallest. We have a voting action, but that will be covered a bit later. What else we have here? We have the DApps. So we decided to allocate the governance-related DApps right into each referendum details because once again, it allows you to participate more in the network activities because applications like a Polkassembly or Subsquare, they involve certain level of discussion, reaction. So whenever you go there and you can see the exact same referendum which we just observed in Nova, you would be able to see any comments available on the Polka assembly or any reactions like likes, dislikes, and all this information. So that's also useful. The alternative platform to the Polka assembly is a subsquare, by the way. So it's also supported in Nova. So you can easily open any of this DApp and it will work. By the way, don't forget to log in using the Nova wallet so that you don't need to actually register or whatsoever. You will just link your account to the Polka assembly as any DApp, basically. We also have here a timeline. So what were the statuses of this referendum across the life cycle? So we can see that it was created on November 4th, which was actually today, 10 hours ago, right? And we can see that right now the status is voting. And in this status, the referendum is actually passing. So yeah, we have more aye votes than nay. So that's why the status is passing. And the next status switch would be to the approve, right? In 6 days and 70 hours. And finally, for people who would like to see more technical information, we have full details here, which have more technical information like a call hash, electorate, turnout, and the vote threshold. So that's also available to you. All right, let's talk about the vote itself. So we can see free referendums here, and I have not yet voted for the USD token sufficiency on statement, so let's vote for this one. We can see that pretty much all of them voted as aye, so let's be a rebel and let's stop revote. And here's what we see. So you can consider that always whenever you consider the voting, you are locking your tokens towards certain decision, either to approve the proposal or reject it, right? So you need to enter the amount. So let's enter it. Next, you need to enter the conviction. And conviction is something what is optional for you, but this is option for you to increase your voting power by increasing your locking period. So for now, these tokens won't be locked, but if I increase my conviction, you can see that the locking period is actually will be increased. So if I go more and more towards the maximum of the conviction, we can see that it can be resulted in something like a 900 days of locking period. But at the same time, it's increasing my voting power in 6 times. Worth mentioning that on Kusama and Polkadot, and probably on other networks, those parameters are different, right? So pay attention to what Nova tells you in terms of the locking period. And yeah, don't let yourself in a situation where you accidentally locks for the 900 days your tokens. Also worth mentioning that this is the maximum locking period, because it's impossible to predict for how long the voting will be taking time, especially in the governance 2.0, where the voting can end in 3 days or in 28 days, depending on the states of approval of or rejection, right? So we showing always you the maximum locking period. Also, the locking period, you can see that is not changing. But if I will enter something like the maximum amount of this account, you can see that actually the governance lock will be increased because now I'm allocating more tokens. Let's also discuss these 2 chips that we have. So if we go back here, we can see that this account, or actually we can go to the assets, we can tap on the logs, and we can see that this account, or this wallet in particular, has locked dot in the democracy, and we have 2,572 something, right? If we go back to the vote, we can see that basically this is represented here, but also you can see that if I go to the revote process, I would be able to see this as an option for me to apply as a preset. So since these tokens are already in the governance lock, I can easily use this, let's say chips, right, to automatically reuse my governance lock. which simplifies your interaction with the governance by a lot, because you don't need to enter amount all the time. You can just tap this chip and that will do the job. And the conviction is basically up to you to consider, but what we're using the governance lock, which is amount. The second one is more interesting. So you can reuse the tokens which are allocated into the staking for the governance. So the second one allows you to reuse all locks, including the staking one, right? So if I will tap here, that will increase my governance lock, but at the same time, that will not do anything with my transferable balance, because all of the tokens which I'm using here already locked, but in the governance. So this is also interesting, especially for the first time whenever you already staking tokens, but then you went for voting, and now you can see that you actually can allocate, let's say, safely this amount of tokens, right? All right, so let's reuse the governance lock. Let's vote as NAI. And this would be a confirmation screen. So we can see the account. We can tap here, copy address, all of the sections available. We can see the fee. We can see our decision for this voting, right? So it's NAI, this votes, this conviction, these tokens. We can see that transferable balance remains the same. Governance lock remains the same because we just reused it. And also locking period remains the same because conviction has not affected it. And a little hint in the end that after locking period, don't forget to unlock your tokens. Actually, for the unlocking feature, let me just not reuse all my locks, because otherwise I won't be able to show you the unlock feature, but let's just vote with something like 150, but with 2 conviction. And let's vote NAI. All right, that's done. We can see, well, as soon as it will be updated, and it is updated now, that my vote has been changed, right? And I should be able to see in the list of the NAI votes or voters, right? So let's just wait a couple seconds for it to be voted, to be loaded. And here's my account, right? So yeah, that's the voting feature. The last one here is unlock tokens. So if we go back on our main screen, we can see the widget. So how many tokens locked in your governance. So if I'll go to the account without any tokens locked in the governance, you will not see anything here. But if I do have some lock for the governance, I will see here, I will see the amount of the governance lock. And if I have some tokens available to be claimed from the governance lock, then I will see the unlock button. All right, so we can see that this amount of DOT tokens is unlockable, right? So I can safely unlock them from the governance lock. And here will be a very interesting thing to see. So I will press unlock here and look what's going on. So we have a network fee, we have a transferable balance, which actually will not change, right? But this is strange because we're just unlocking the tokens from the governance lock. And what's happening here is the governance lock itself is decreasing, and we can see it, right? So we can see that it will be decreased on the same amount that we just decided to unlock. But we have these hints, because remember when I mentioned that you can reuse your other locks, and this is exactly what is happening. So this amount of tokens, even if they are unlocked from the governance, they still remain locked in staking. And Nova clearly stated for you, right? And we can actually check it if we will go to the staking and see how much tokens this wallet is allocated to the staking, right? So once setup confirmed here, those tokens would be released from the governance. So they are no longer locked in the governance, but they're still locked for this account in staking, right? So we hope that that will be clear for the users. We will see the feedback and we will try to improve based on this. All right, I have one more topic to be covered, which is governance 2.0 itself, because right now we have been observing the governance version 1 since we've been operating on the Polkadot. But from the user perspective, in governance 2.0, all these features would be the same. So the referendum details, voting, locking tokens, everything will be the same, besides a couple of things, which I will cover after I will take a look on the chat, because I can see lots of messages there. Can we use proxy accounts to vote? I prefer to not keep the keys to my real account, safe and use to my things. Polkadot has a feature where an account can be accessed. Yes, so the proxy is something what we would like to address together with the multi-sigs. Right now, I don't think that you would be able to use it. Maybe Valentin or Ruslan, who are in chat, can help me with this. But probably, I would say that not yet supported. On the topic, but not yet supported, but it's planned, right? On the topic of locking, you should also integrate unlocking. It would be useful to see the unbonding page. I'm not sure that I got you. Maybe it was before that I showed the unlocking feature, but yeah, feel free to write the message. Yes, delegation is something what we're planning for the next iteration for the governance features, because in governance 2.0, there are actually more efforts towards the how we can delegate your votes. So we will also include it. Once again, we would like to move iteratively. So we decided that this amount of the features would be, let's say, complete for most of the users. And now we're going to iterate it over the time. Oh, nice. Hi. All right. So we have a limited amount of time available. So let's switch to the governance version 2. As I mentioned, none of the networks like Kusama, Moonriver, and all the parachains have them deployed yet. But we deployed our own testnet, and also Lit and Try team is working on the testnet, which is that one. But let's consider this testnet. So what has changed? And yeah, you can already say that we don't have Polka assembly API for it, so we don't see fancy titles and descriptions. But yeah, instead you can see the referendum numbers, let's say. However, you can see now the tracks, and tracks is something what you as a user will see more oftenly, because this is actually categories of the different referendums. And in the governance 2.0, you will see multiple referendums available with the different tracks. So you can see one referendum available as a main agenda, let's say like runtime upgrade. Another one would be allocated for the tips, which is small one. Another one will be big tip. Another one will be a big spend for the treasury proposal. Another one will be related to the governance configuration. So all of this is happening at once, right? And the tracks are really helping you to understand what's going on, right? And also they're setting up the parameters on how long the referendum will last, and other criteria like the threshold for the of the minimal votes for it to be passed, right? So you can see on the left column is how they're technically named. The second column is how Nova and our team has named them. And the third one is basically a description with some interesting values. Like you can see that the treasury now will be decomposed in the three categories. 3 for the proposals and 2 for the tips anyways, right? So the top amount will be 5,000 Kusama, the least amount will be 50 Kusamas, and the tips will be 1 and 5 Kusama, right? This is also interesting information to consider. But let's go back to the slides and to the demo itself. So we have this information about the track, and we also have more information about how referendum will change its status, because remember when we mentioned that governance 2.0 is more dynamic, and this exactly what it means. So everything happens faster, right? So we don't need to something like endorse proposals from the version 1 governance. Instead, you just submit the referendum to the blockchain, you enter the deposit, and then you basically allocate it to the queue. And your position in this queue is depending on how many tokens already allocated to the referendum, right? So the hottest referendum will be always pushed to the deciding period, which is period for basically either approving or rejecting proposals. And the deciding period is very interesting one, because it allows us to approve proposals which everyone agrees on in a relatively fast way, like 3 hours. But if, let's say, proposal was in approval state for 2 hours and then it gone to the rejected status, then this time will be reset. So as soon as it will be up, in approval status again, so I will be more than nigh, then we still need to wait again 3 hours. And overall, this can last for 28 days. So rejection period is 28 days, which means that if proposal will not be approved within 28 days, it will be rejected, right? There are also certain criteria introduced, like a threshold. So you can see that this proposal, let's see that one. This proposal is not passing, and this will be rejected in 3 hours if the threshold will not be met. And if we will try to change it, let's try to change it. Let's say allocate 100 votes with a to conviction, vote I, confirm. Ideally, what we should see that threshold will be met. Yes, right? So threshold is met and the status has changed to passing, right? Because first, threshold for minimal amount of token was met. And second, the to pass boundary was reached. So I is 89% and to pass is 70%. So there are lots of things interesting in the governance, and the Nova shows them all so that you can understand what's going on at any time. But yeah, you can see that different tracks represented in a different way. And once this will be deployed to Kusama, you will be able to see also the titles and description. All right, that will be it for the demo. We have 4 minutes left, so let me switch back to the slides just to finalize our roadmap. So for the roadmap, we just finished Governance 1.0 and Governance 2.0 support. It's already available on Android, and iOS will be released next week, right? And now we are going to think and work on the third Kusama Treasury proposal, as well as to include more community requested features, more networks and tokens, and more staking options available in Nova. So that's our plan by the end of this year. And just to summarize, we just finished our second Kusama Treasury grant. Our final feature was the governance, which we have been working for 2 months. And overall, this proposal was focused on the cross-chain transfers, watch-only wallets, parity signer, and ledger integration as hardware wallets, and also a bunch of community requested features which made Nova even better mobile wallet for the Polkadot. So that being said, this is it from our side. Let me check the chat if we have any more questions. Very complex update, boys. Tipping my head to the team. Great work. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, if there are any questions, feel free to ask them in our community channels. And thank you so much for joining. I see you in 2 weeks. Cheers.